Hi, this is Secret Handshake. This time, I decided to sculpt Rei Ayanami from Neon Genesis Evangelion. Cold and distant at first, but gradually becomes more human. I've always found her fascinating to sculpt. So, let's get started. Let's start with the head. I used to start from a simple sphere, but these days I often begin with the head planes mesh. In the end, both approaches lead to the same place, but starting with a different shape brings a fresh kind of fun. While sculpting the face, I pay attention to key facial landmarks and the overall muscle structure. At the same time, I try not to use too much mesh from the beginning. For the ears, even though they'll be mostly hidden by the hair, I still take my time to make them carefully. It could be a good opportunity to practice. Once the basic head shape is in place, I begin to gently incorporate some of the features I've imagined for the character's personality and style. Then, I do a rough color pass. I'll tweak it a million times before it's done, but early coloring helps me visualize the final look better. As for the eyebrows, I usually make them with mesh, but painting them in seems to look a bit more natural. Now onto the hair. Even though I use ZBrush now, Blender still feels more intuitive to me, especially its curve tool, which I still find to be one of the most useful ways to make hair. I don't worry too much about the final shape in the beginning. I just focus on layering the hair step by step. After filling in the scalp with base shapes, I move to ZBrush to refine the forms. This is where I really start defining the shape. Since these strands will guide the flow of the rest of the hair, I try to put extra care into them. While working on the hair, I also make little adjustments to the face along the way. When the primary shapes are ready, I go back to Blender to create supporting strands, then polish everything in ZBrush. As I make the hair, it reminds me of Sakura's hairstyle from Cardcaptor Sakura. I remember spending a lot of time thinking about it when I made it before. Looks simple, right? Yeah, not so much. Come to think of it, anime has had a bigger influence on my work than I thought. What about you? Do you think anime has influenced your creations as well? Time to make the body. I actually plan to stop at the head, so I don't really have a solid plan from here. I'm just winging it. When making anything, letting go of the idea that you have to get everything right from the start can make things a lot easier. In the beginning, I just focus on blocking out the basic shapes, no matter how it looks. It's okay to get things wrong. Don't worry about proportions or details. Just go with the flow. That said, I still find myself getting impatient at times. Even when I'm just trying to block out the base, I often catch myself fussing over tiny details. It reminds me of something I once heard. A now famous artist said, she finishes a full piece in 5 hours or 15 at most. Meanwhile, I can't even finish the body in that amount of time. I used to think it was just because I'm not skilled enough yet, and that would really get me down. But even if I get more experienced, I feel like I'll probably always take longer than most people. Maybe it's just the way I am. Now that the basic shapes are in place, I can sculpt the body how I like. Since the face already deviated from the original, I'm allowing myself a bit more freedom with the body too. Until now, I hadn't decided on what outfit to put on or what pose to strike, so I've just been making it, thinking I'd practice until something comes to mind. Even though some parts might not be shown later, when the concept isn't coming together, playing around with different things often leads to a direction. Wouldn't it be easier to just plan everything in advance? Yeah, that's true. Once the body is mostly done, I move on to the plug suit. First, I lay down the base structure, then build the backpack-like piece on the back and the neck collar. Interestingly, different illustrators have drawn this part in various ways, so I picked the version I liked most. I think the contrast between the smooth suit and the sharp mechanical elements really brings out the design. My favorite detail? These screw-like shapes on the plug suit, so I carefully made them. Then I go around refining the rest of the suit. The video might look smooth, but this is actually my third attempt at the suit. Editing makes it look like it's the first try. Did I fool you? I use masking to create the attachments around the body and add a bit of color as well. I originally planned to split all the parts and model them separately, but it got a bit too complicated. So instead, I switched it to carving grooves into the surface. It still gives a layered feel, and I don't think most people would notice the difference in the final piece. Let's not forget the shoes. I made the shoes thinking of aqua shoes. Since the pilots sit inside the entry plug filled with LCL fluid, it made sense that they would wear something like this. I wonder if the original creator had a similar thought. I also add the black lines around the thighs. There are many ways to do this, but I prefer masking. It's what I'm most used to. I reduced the muscle definition around the knees to give her a softer, more useful look rather than a tough warrior vibe. I also carved grooves into this part. I tried making this several times, but I wasn't happy with how it turned out. In the end, I drew guidelines and followed them to get a cleaner result. Bit by bit, I add more details. The most readable ones are often the folds in the suit. I add them to the most visible spots carefully, so they don't overwhelm the foam. Then I work on the front chest piece. Since her body is slim, I just kept the shape small and light. I throw in a few more tiny details here and there. How's it looking so far? Using hard surface brushes, I try to make the suit feel more real and technical. I made sure to add the palms too. At first, the color and design contrast seemed a bit off, but now I realize how much these details help complete the plug suit design. I add her signature unit number and look over everything I've built so far. Then it's time for her headgear and finally posing. I hadn't planned the pose since this was all spontaneous, so I gave her a quick rig in Blender just to pose her, then brought her back into ZBrush for polishing. To finish, I add a logo on the ground to represent her organization. With the pose added, the character is now complete. How about creating your own character today? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.